I welcome council, staff, and all those making presentations and public and people being recognized this evening. Welcome one and all to our Wednesday, April 14th council meeting, electronic meeting. So welcome. And with that, I will read our council commitment for the town of Penetanguishene. We are grateful for the many gifts which have been bestowed on Penetanguishene and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. We ask that all in attendance and those who could not be here assist us in promoting good government. May our decisions as members of council be enlightened, and may we all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all and to make good laws and wise decisions. Thank you all for attending. And with that, I will move on to approval of the agenda. And that the agenda of the regular council meeting of April 14, 2021 be approved as presented. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor LaRose and Councillor Signamon, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And with that, we will move on to item 5, which is the declaration of pecuniary interest. If anyone so has, declare or declare at the appropriate time. Moving on to item 6, public meeting. There is a public meeting tonight under section 51 and 34 of the Planning Act to consider application for draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment to the town zoning bylaw 2000-02 for the property at 123 Robert Street East. To council, the purpose of this public meeting is to provide an opportunity for the public to make comments. The purpose of this public meeting is not to engage in a debate regarding the merits of the application, nor is it intended to be a question and answer session. To the public, this is your opportunity to speak, and we encourage you to do so. We kindly request that any speakers who have provided written communication provide a summary or highlights of their main concerns, and that if a comment or statement has been made, that it isn't repeated by each speaker. In accordance with the Planning Act, if a person does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions before the bylaw is passed or an approval given, you will not be entitled to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal, and you may not be added as a party to a hearing on an appeal to the LPAT unless, in the opinion of the LPAT, there are reasonable grounds to do so. And so with that, I would ask our planner to introduce the applicant and then have the applicant put forward the application. Andrea?
Thank you very much, Your Worship, members of council and public. We do have an application tonight. There are two. One is the application for a plan of subdivision for the property at 123 Robert Street East. And associated with that application is the implementing zoning bylaw that would set the zone standards for the proposed development. So the property is located at 125 Robert Street East. It has 1.2 hectares of frontage and of area and frontage onto 3 streets, La Couronne Avenue, Burke Street, and Robert Street East, being a triangular shaped property. The subdivision proposal is to develop the land into 6 blocks for freehold for townhouses for a total unit count of 33 units. 22 of those units are intended for freehold, while 11 units are intended as a rental accommodation in the block. There are also 2 additional blocks for open space, daylight triangles, road widening for Robert Street East. The implementing zoning bylaw would rezone the lands from deferred development zone into 2 new site-specific zone categories, being the residential third density and the residential fourth density, each with exceptions related to rear yard setbacks, increases to lot coverage for townhouse blocks, and additionally to rezone the blocks for open space. Notice of tonight's public meeting was given on March 2nd, and we have received some correspondence that have been included in the agenda package. I've also just circulated to you some of the items that we received that we'll call on desk items, correspondence from community members that were received after the agenda was published. I also believe there was a petition that was filed with a number of signatures on it opposed to the subdivision. We have received comments as well from the County of Simcoe and some of the other agencies with no particular comments or concerns with the proposed development application. Ms. Celeste Phillips is here on behalf of the owner of the property, and she has a presentation that can summarize and give an overview of what's being proposed for the site. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So I believe we have Celeste Phillips with us this evening. So Celeste, it's your show here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor, members of council, members of the public and staff. I'm hoping that you can see my screen.
Yes, we do.
So that I can start the presentation. So I am Celeste Phillips. I'm a land use planning consultant, and I'm here tonight to speak to you on behalf of the owner of 123 Robert Street East. The owner is Brian McPherson, and his company number is 2006316 Ontario Inc. Also with me this evening is Mr. Jonathan Reimer of WMI Engineering, and he's here to assist me if I'm not able to answer any of the questions related to detailed engineering. The property that I'm speaking to you about this evening, as Andrea has mentioned, is at 123 Robert Street. It's a triangular shaped property, and it's bounded on all sides by roadways. It's on the north side of Robert Street East, and it's south of Burke Street and east of Le Caron. This is a closer view of the property. It consists of about 2.9 acres with about 196 meters of frontage along Robert Street East. And it is currently occupied by a single detached dwelling. And this property is within the Penetang-Washeen built boundary as defined by the province. I have a couple of site photos. These are photos of the property from Robert Street East in the top left corner, from Le Caron on the top right, from Burke Street in the bottom left, and from the intersection of Robert Street East and Dufferin Street, where that point of the triangle is for this property. The matter was dealt with, first of all, at a pre-consultation meeting with town staff and the owner, and that happened before consultants were retained to assist. Once the consultants were retained, there were a number of technical reports submitted as required by town staff, and the applications for plan of subdivision approval and rezoning were submitted to the town in January of this year and deemed to be complete applications. The owner, Mr. McPherson, distributed information by way of a flyer to nearby landowners in March of this year, along with his contact information. And similarly, a sign was posted on the property listing his contact information as well as mine. Mr. McPherson has been very transparent about what is proposed. He's provided his personal phone number. As I've mentioned, he received one inquiry from a gentleman on Robert Street East. I did not receive any inquiries. The request, as Andrea has mentioned, is to rezone the property. The current zoning is the deferred development zoning, and the requested zones are R3, R4 with minor exceptions, and the open space zone. The rezoning would allow for the development of 22 freehold street-facing townhouses and 11 rental townhouses on a private roadway. And in addition to that, there are 2 open space blocks that are proposed as part of the development. This is an extract of the town's official plan. The property is outlined in blue. I'm not sure if you can see the cursor that I'm showing, but this is the property located here. The yellow tone on the slide shows that the lands are designated neighborhood area in the town's official plan. And that's a designation that contemplates medium density development such as what is being proposed. The next slide is a zoning extract for the property. The property is identified in green on this slide, and the zoning is the D, deferred development. And I would note that there are other properties in the area that also have the deferred development zoning to the west and to the southeast. The next slide shows the proposed development plan for the property. As I mentioned, there are 22 freehold townhouses being proposed. 18 of these would face Burke Street in this location here, and 4 would face Robert Street East. So these are freehold townhouses, ownership occupied, and the owner preferred to divide these into 3 blocks of 4 and 1 block of 6 rather than have the massing that's associated with an 8-unit townhouse block. So that was the preference that he had to break up the massing of the building. In addition, there are 11 rental townhouses proposed in this location here, and they are proposed on a private laneway that would be accessed from either Robert Street East or Le Caron on the west side of the property. Additionally, there are the 2 open space blocks, which your town official plan refers to as pocket parks. And there is a road widening of 3 meters that is required by the town engineering department, and a daylighting triangle at this location of Le Caron and Robert Street East. The proposed density meets the provincial target that has been set for Penetanguishene. And these, the development of these lands will help the town in meeting its intensification target, which is set at 40%. And what that means is that 40% of all new residential units in your town are to be developed within the built boundary of Penetanguishene. So this development concept represents infill development and residential intensification, and it will certainly add to the range of housing types that are available in your town, having both ownership townhouses and rental townhomes. There were 6 reports submitted with the subdivision and rezoning applications. These include an archaeological report, a functional servicing and stormwater management report, including a traffic impact assessment, a species at risk environmental report, soils investigations and test pit results, hydrogeological and water balance analysis, and a planning justification report. The zoning amendments that are being requested are minor in nature, and I'll just go back to this slide to show you what they are. In this case, for 2 of the units, units 25 and 33, that's this one here and this one here. These are technically rear yards, although they function as side yards. So in that instance, there's a minor adjustment required there. And in addition to that, with the road widening, the setback for this unit here, the rental unit, the side of it would be closer to the road than would normally be permitted, as well as a slight increase in the lot coverage. Prior to completing my presentation, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to briefly respond to some of the questions that I have noted in written correspondence. There are comments from the County of Simcoe with respect to waste disposal, and I have provided email correspondence to Andrea Betty confirming that the road width and the radius of this private laneway is of sufficient size and width and radius to allow for the County of Simcoe to pick up garbage, not only from the street-facing townhouses, but also for the rental accommodation. I noted that residents have suggested the type of tenure should be changed and shouldn't be approved as proposed. And I wish to advise that Mr. McPherson wishes to develop freehold townhouses facing Burke Street and Robert Street. He has no interest in developing condominium townhouses on a private roadway. As well, he's quite interested in responding to the needs for rental housing in Penetang with the 11 rental units. The density of this project has been referenced in correspondence. It's my position that the comparison of this proposed development to others in town is not appropriate or fair, in that the other projects are condominium projects with internal roadways and amenities such as swimming pools, which typically result in a lower density. So the density that is proposed here meets the density target that has been set by the province for your town. In fact, your official plan and the county official plan both indicate that development within built-up areas such as this may be of a higher density, and a range of housing types is encouraged. And local municipalities are actually to facilitate exactly the type of housing that is proposed. There were questions about the height of the project. I would mention that the height in this particular area of town, including the height that is permitted on the properties of the objectors, is 11 meters, but Mr. McPherson has no desire to build 3-story townhouses. His interest is bungalow or 2-story townhouses, not 3-story. There was a question about parking, and parking is proposed in conformity with your zoning bylaw. There were questions about street parking and possible congestion, and I would note that no on-street parking is permitted in your town within 9 meters of an intersection. And as you know, there's no overnight parking permitted in the town between November 1st and April 1st. Regarding stormwater management, yes, the underground stormwater management tank is the format that is proposed. This is not unusual anymore, and in fact, it's quite frequently used. It's a subsurface stormwater management facility. And as in all new developments, the post-development flows from this site have to match the pre-development flows, and that has been demonstrated in the technical reports that have been filed with you. A question about driveways, they will be asphalted. There was a question about site plan control, and certainly that will apply to the rental component of this project. The owner has no interest in Airbnb units. They're not contemplated for this project. And there is no requirement by the town to submit architectural drawings except for the rental units that will be, as I mentioned, subject to site plan control. There were some questions about compatibility and character, and as council is aware, the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal, formerly the Ontario Municipal Board, has ruled that compatible does not necessarily mean the same as. So we look at the character of the area when we're putting forward a plan such as this. This is in character with the area, in my professional opinion. The neighborhood has a variety of housing types. There's single detached, there's semi-detached, and there are townhouses in the area. And there's also a variety of housing styles and architectures, including older homes and some newer homes as well. So when proposing an infill development such as this, we look at what the impact of the development will have on the existing neighborhood. In this case, the property is an island of land surrounded on 3 sides by roads. So as a result, the property does not abut existing dwellings. So there's no shadow impact, and there's no loss of privacy for existing homeowners in the area. There were a number of comments about traffic, and there has been a traffic impact assessment filed as part of the application. Yes, there will be an increase in traffic, but that increase will not be to the extent that turning lanes or road improvements are required. The study that has been submitted has concluded that the capacity of current roadways can accommodate what is considered to be an insignificant increase in traffic. And I know there were comments about speeding traffic, particularly coming off Robert Street and onto Burke Street. And I would suggest that can be addressed through various traffic calming measures that we use. Often it's police enforcement, stop signs, or even speed bumps. I guess in summing things up, in terms of the market for housing, there is definitely a need for more of a variety of housing in the town. And this is clearly articulated in your official plan. The owner has an interest in providing that same housing that you require, particularly an interest in housing for those who are just starting out and can't afford a single detached dwelling, could be accommodated in one of the freehold townhouses. And also to those who wish to downsize and move to a smaller unit in town. And of course, the 11 rental units, we know that there's a huge demand for rental accommodation. So the 11 rental townhouses are a particular interest to Mr. McPherson. He plans to own those 11 units, and he would manage the rental and property maintenance of those 11 units. And his interest is in marketing that rental accommodation to 55 plus, perhaps to snowbirds or to those who are looking to downsize. So in closing, Mr. Mayor, members of council, the plan and rezoning, the plan of subdivision and rezoning before you, in my opinion, as a professional planner, responds to the need for varied housing in the town. It responds to the need for housing that as the type that has clearly been expressed by all levels of government for infill housing and intensification. It is an appropriate density. It's in character with the existing community, and it's compatible with the neighborhood. And finally, the proposed development is consistent with and conforms to provincial, county, and municipal land use planning policies. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that I have not already addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. And if you would kindly remove your screen, thank you. And with that, we will move on. And so with that, I would ask if there is anyone in the audience who wishes to make comments in opposition or in support of the application based on land use planning issues relevant to the application. And I ask that they please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. It's Mr. Huguenin, Tony, 135 Burke Street. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
good. Because I'm not too certain how to put the video so that I know that you see me.
We don't see you, but we hear you, Tony.
Okay, I think the producer has allowed me to start my video, so I'm just clicking that.
There
Okay,
you are.
so
Okay.
see me now.
You're good.
I'm in the bottom right-hand corner. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, and public, and Mr. McPherson and Ms. Phillips. I wanted to save time by saying I'm going to follow the mayor's suggestion and understand that this isn't a debate, and I'm not going to question the comments. I'll just give a blanket statement that you do have all of my comments in my written submission, and I believe that the developer's planner has basically addressed all of the concerns that I had raised. Those are concerns that are raised, many of them, and shared by a large number of the neighbors that we met over the Easter weekend, that we were collecting the virtual petition and also the ink signature petition. So I won't repeat and I won't refute or comment on the planner's comments on my comments, because it just goes in a circle. So you do have them in writing. I stand by them, and I'm prepared to stand by them as we go forward. Disappointed to hear about the developer not wanting to go to anything other than freehold, which puts the question of an internal road into conflict with the development. Well, we'll have to deal with that as time goes along, because of all the people we spoke to in the neighborhood, we have the 64 names combined for the petition ink and virtual petition, and every single person we spoke to, even those who did not sign, had shared their desire that we express that an internal road, and some of them have expressed themselves that an internal road is the solution to resolve or to mitigate many of the problems that I raised in my submission. Anything ranging from parking, snow removal, the concern of traffic safety at the intersection of the three-way street. And that one point I have at the top of my list is the safety concern that all of the residents that we spoke to shared. If it were not for COVID, I would give a fair estimate that out of the 64 names we collected, I would say quadruple that. We would be able to bring in a couple of hundred extra signatures on a petition if we were able to go door to door without the impediment of COVID concerns and social distancing and just respect for neighbors' privacy when it comes to COVID. And the main concern, I think it's already been noted, is the fact that you have three streets coming together. And the one street that poses the most problem is Robert Street when people are traveling westbound and veering onto Burke Street. We've heard from many people of the near accidents. We've heard from people who have had accidents. We are aware of the neighbors who have difficulty pulling out of their driveway on Burke Street, who are the closest to the three-way intersection. And we believe, I'm often going to say we, but I'll just say I believe, and I've had that shared by many people, that the addition of 18 driveways from the townhouses proposed on Burke, keeping in mind the fact that they're so close together with only 26.25 foot frontages of each of those townhouse lots, that will only compound the concerns for safety. And there's a liability issue for the town. Prior to the 2019 official plan adoption for the new OP, since the 1970s, I believe, there had been a section 4.3, what have you, that specifically named Robert Street East, Dufferin and Burke Street as a priority intersection. And that was actually noted as a priority intersection requiring alignment in a past planning report from 1988 from your former planner, Paul Hodgins, which I was thankful to get a copy from the clerk 2.5 weeks ago. And I did include that with my package, and I have that highlighted, that it has been on the books, recognized, it has been brought up through the planning department through day-to-day business with past developments from the 80s. And just to reiterate, that intersection has a high level of concern with a large number of residents. And the solutions to that intersection can come with the subdivision immediately with an internal road. That will relieve the compounding of traffic that will be coming from the driveways. I don't disagree with the traffic count because 18 additional units isn't our concern. It's the proximity of those 18 driveways to the intersection that's of greatest concern. The town had built through the grant program 2-3 years ago the new sidewalk on the north side of Robert Street East that continues across Burke and up the one block of Dufferin to Brule as the first leg of sidewalk for the students that will be going to St. Louis School. And it poses a danger when a child, they have their backpack on, it's a primary school for St. Louis. When they cross from one side of the sidewalk to the other side of the sidewalk, it was actually shown in the bottom right-hand corner photo that the developer's planner had showed at the very beginning. The bottom right-hand corner showed looking at the intersection, catching the sidewalk on Robert. So the student would be required to cross in opposition to the traffic veering off of Robert Street East. And living on the street, we know about the speeds that they travel, talking firsthand to the immediate neighbors right in close proximity to the intersection at the speeds that the drivers are traveling at. That is going to pose, if it's not corrected, a continued liability, a continued safety concern for the pedestrians using that sidewalk, let alone the drivers who have to come from Dufferin. We've spoken from many people who live all the way from Payette, Swan, Kerr, all the way down to Hilltop, Richelieu, VL, Brule, Burke, and Dufferin itself. Many of them will travel out Centennial, out past the factories to be able to avoid the intersection. I know, speaking with all members of council, including yourself, Mr. Mayor, that I don't believe there are many people in town who are unaware of the safety concerns at that intersection. And we do know that it takes time to consider how to cure the problem. However, there's only three options. Dead end, a cul-de-sac, put an L, like was suggested back in 1988, to come off of Burke at 90 degrees with Robert, or to have a roundabout. And my consideration and of the other neighbors, a roundabout would be extremely expensive. The L would be less expensive, and the cul-de-sac would be preferred from the neighbors. It would make for a safe street, and it would be the least expensive to the purse.
Mr. Huguenin, I just want to interject here to just remind you that you have 1 minute left in your 10-minute presentation.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was advised by the Director of Planning and Community Services from Andrea Betty that because this is a meeting held under the Planning Act, that it is not subject to the rules of procedure for conducting a council meeting. So can I have clarification, please?
I am going under the direction of the clerk, so.
Was the clerk available to ask the planning director to confirm my statement?
Madam Clerk?
I believe the Director of Planning was copied on my reply to Mr. Huguenin regarding the limitation and that it did fall under. But certainly if she has given alternative directions to Mr. Huguenin, I'd ask that she please provide us with that.
Madam Planner, do you have any comment to this?
No, I mean, I'm deferring to the clerk more than anything on this because it's a planning act. Typically you give, voice and time for people to make all their comments and such. So I thought this was the opposite, that he had as much time as necessary to make his comments.
Okay, well, Mr. Huguenin, perhaps I could ask you, can you tell us approximately how much more time you require?
I would say 20 minutes.
20 more minutes?
Yes. And I can reduce that to 15 because I don't want to delay your very heavy agenda, which I understand you have quite a lot of matters to deal with tonight. So I'd be happy to speed along and just touch on the tip of everything. You have the bulk of my written submission. And to give fairness to all the people who participated during COVID, the one thing that they were most concerned with was the traffic safety. So I'll move on from that. There's no need to continue. I believe everyone on council has driven that intersection many times and is aware of it. So I'll respect what your request is, and I'll speed up my presentation and continue on to different matters.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So just in very quick point form, parking matters are of concern both on street and off street parking. And that comes from the size of the front yard setback with only 6 meters. You'll only be able to put one vehicle on private property. Most households have more than one vehicle. The garages that are proposed, you can tell just by driving any subdivision, most people don't park in their garage. Snow removal is a concern. Snow storage. It has to be remembered from the developers that are from the GTA, which I've met Mr. McPherson, very nice gentleman, and I understand he's from Bondhead, just the other side of the 400 from Bradford. But they may be missing the snow. So starting from Barrie, you'll have that snow. And I know it's a major concern with Public Works. And I know it's a major concern for when a subdivision is being proposed, where you're going to put your snow storage, not only banked on the side of the road for municipal snow plowing, but also on private property. Now with zoning, I wanted to note that height is of great interest to myself and others. And height, if it's limited to 1 story as proposed by the developer, we're completely agreeable to. I can't see any reason why the town wouldn't implement a zone provision that would limit the height of the buildings facing Burke, whichever configuration, private road or public road, to 1 story in height. This is what he has proposed, and this is what he told us tonight through his planner that he's proposing. So I do know that council does have the authority to amend what has been applied for with zoning. And I do know that council does have the ability to be more restrictive with zoning. So they don't always have to give relief in a beneficial manner. They can also impose zoning that would control something in a restrictive manner, such as height. Rather than 3 stories, we'd be happy with 1 story. Question of drainage and the asphalt gutter that exists on Burke on the south side. A couple of things. I don't believe that the asphalt gutter has really been recognized. Living on the street during storms, if you take just runoff from the driveways, that asphalt gutter is not going to be able to handle things. The public would like to see drawings at some point of the proposed buildings. So architectural drawings, front, left, rear, right side elevations to see what these townhouses will look like. The townhouses that are in the rental, we hear that there no argument about site plan control. We would say that site plan control should be applied to all the townhouses because of their built form being townhouses. They should have site plan control to control their maintenance and ongoing buildings into the future. The other thing was the standard requirement for asphalting of the driveways, putting soddings on the lawn, tree planting would be something we'd be looking for. The Airbnb, we agree with that should be something prohibited, and I'm happy to hear that Mr. McPherson agrees with that thought. Question maybe to be answered later from his engineer would be the underground stormwater tanks. Will they have an effect on the groundwater level such that they'll cause sump pumps in the spring to run more frequently for the properties on the north side of Burke? Because there's going to be an effect of some sort on the water table. And then the other important aspect is a construction management plan. I'm not sure if that's a standard in Penetanguishene as a draft plan condition, but that would be welcomed by all of the people on Burke Street if there was a way to manage the phases of construction, timing, rollout. Is there a complaint process? So if we had problems with dust and trucks, we'd have someone to talk to just to be able to look at that. In phase 2, a question for Mr. McPherson is the aspect of the rental. If he's operating it, will he be pursuing any sort of assistance in terms of what's known as affordable housing through the county? And that perhaps I can hear from him later on that. Simple question about phase 2. I didn't see on the drawing anything that showed where visitor parking or snow storage would be placed. There's nothing delineated on the WMI engineering drawings. So that finishes all of the information that I put with my presentation. Since I put my presentation in, I've had the opportunity to talk with the gentleman who I believe is present tonight, which is the engineer Jonathan Reimer from WMI. And it was specifically regarding the intersection. And in quick bullet point form, when I spoke to Jonathan Reimer, the engineer, yesterday, I had told him up front that I was speaking to clarify some things in the traffic impact assessment that I was wanting to speak to at tonight's meeting. He had no problem talking with me. When I brought up the question of the 3-way intersection, he had agreed with me and called it an odd intersection. I asked a few more questions and he had agreed with me that that intersection would never be approved today in this day and age, 2021, in terms of traffic engineering. And then when I asked why it was that the intersection was not part of the traffic impact assessment, nowhere is the intersection actually named in the engineer's report, I was just told that it was an existing intersection. And this is the odd part. I was told that he was made aware at a pre-consultation meeting with the town that this intersection had a roundabout planned for it. And I'm thinking out loud, perhaps could be thought of as being presumptuous on the part of the engineering to not include the intersection, because there's a whole process that council has to approve to have that intersection realigned, including an environmental assessment, which brings the public back into the public participation and commenting through the EA process. So that's the end of the intersection. The other item deals with matters that I am aware of from years ago when I purchased and built the property here at 135, and that is the front-ending agreement from the 1973, the front-ending clause in the subdivision agreement in 1973 with the former developer, Romeo Asley, I believe, who passed away in 2005. And the agreement was provided in the submission that I gave, and it highlights the aspect that was also highlighted in your planning report from 1988, where the planner wrote, so this has happened from 73 to 88, and from 88 to 2021. The planner of the day in 88 wrote, the town is legally obliged to require anyone wishing to connect to the Burke Street services to reimburse Mr. Romeo Asley, who had finance services on Burke. So you have the north side and the south side. Here we are 40 years later, and the south side is being proposed to be built. And I've spoken to a lawyer, and I've been told that this is a matter that needs to be looked at and resolved. What that reveals, or what that discovers, or what that brings about as a resolution, I don't know, and I'm just leaving that as noting that for council's attention. And the second item is contained within the same planning report. There's reference to local improvement charges, which I'm sure your finance department has on the book somewhere, that are owing as a deferral for the Robert Street side when sewers were constructed many years ago. The next item that I was going to talk about was my discussions with Greg Merrick, who's the senior manager for the north of Simcoe County in the planning department at the County of Simcoe down in Midhurst. And he made a couple of good points to me that I've noted. He had said that the items such as the 40% intensification target, which I believe is actually 40% of building permits, so 4 out of every 10 building permits that are issued in town need to be issued in properties located in the built boundary rather than units being created. But Greg Merrick had said that there are a number of municipalities, which I take to be a notable number, a number of municipalities in Simcoe County out of the 16 members who are having a difficult time meeting the targets set by the growth plan. And he pointed out that Penetang, congratulations, are doing quite healthy when you do a review from 2011 to 2019. The target number, 49%, 9% above the minimum requirement. And so Penetang is doing well compared to the other municipalities, so that's good work. It also tells me that there's not as much pressure on the number of units that go back to the whole question of density at the proposed subdivision. The other thing that Mr. Merrick had noted, Greg Merrick had noted, that the county does not police the decisions on subdivisions. He had advised and reminded me that the town of Penetang has subdivision approval authority itself. So there are no growth plan police. That opens up the subjective aspects of planning review of a draft plan of subdivision application to council, so that they don't have to be looking at pure targets. Just in closing, to give recognition of the 64 people who had put their names to the petitions. Thank you very much to them, and thank you to the council for noting the petition through conversations with every member of council. We've been able to, through COVID, bring the neighborhood into a public process. So we're happy for all the people who worked on the petition, and we're happy for all the people who signed into the petition. So in summary, I'm here now, finally, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your patience. The most important point of all would be to front all of the proposed townhouses onto an internal private road. That provides an opportunity to mitigate or actually eliminate the concerns that I had raised in my written submission about snow storage, about parking, about the traffic at the three-way intersection. And I give examples that have worked very well on the idea of a concept of an internal road. And the reason why they work well is because of the fact that they're taking care of these aspects of parking, snow storage, and traffic. You have in our neighborhood, Summerhaven at Burke and Lorne. You have Green Gables at Thompson, just west of the Georgian Village. You have the new village of Bay Moorings, which is the Park Bridge development at Fox Street and Church. And you have St. Andrews Village, which is the newly approved development on Fuller that just went through the OMB or the LPAT process. And the Bay Moorings, which is on the actual marina site of Bay Moorings and the Dutchman Cove on Fox Street, just beside the sewage treatment plant. And the last is Sunshine Village, which is very good news for the seniors. And that's on Fox Street, just north of McGuire Park. So all of those 6 examples have internal roads or proposed internal roads that will work very well. They're going to maximize the benefit of the internal road. So we wanted to say thank you. Just wanted to say that there could be a better way of doing the growth plan. The one size fits all isn't really what Penetang is all about, in our opinion. Planning by numbers isn't everything. Targets are not everything. Something that's common to the GTA doesn't have to play out in Penetanguishene. It's not a game of Tetris where you try to jiggle the lots and units to fit the maximum size of geometry that will work its way into this unusual triangular shaped parcel. It's no one's fault that we have a triangular shaped parcel that has to be worked at, but we think that with a thoughtful local eye, that the experience that council has, knowing the people who live in the community, you bump into everyone at the grocery store every other day. We're looking for having the development across the road with a change becoming something that we can be happy with. And when you have the neighborhood happy with the project, you have an improved neighborhood, you have an improved community, and you have something that's better for the town. So thank you very much. Thank you for your patience. And
Thank you, Mr. Huguenin. And I have to say that the other members of the public that will want to make comment or in favor or opposed, I would probably remind you that we would not expect anyone to come with anything in opposition contrary to what Mr. Huguenin has already given council. We do not want to have anyone coming forward and just repeating what has been submitted to council and what Mr. Huguenin's presentation was. So with that, if there's anyone that wishes to add anything new to the in favor or opposed, they say their name and address, then we will hear them.
thank you.
And I don't see that we do have anyone else. And with that, then, yeah, well, I'm coming back to you, Celeste. I don't see it, anyone else from the public. So with that, I'm going to just come back that concluding comments from Celeste, the applicant or agent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a couple of corrections to the previous speaker's comments. First of all, Mr. McPherson is not from the GTA and he's not bringing GTA housing to Penetang. He lives in Bondhead in Simcoe County. Secondly, I mentioned the height, and the current height permitted in this area is 11 meters. What I indicated is that Mr. McPherson has no interest in building a 3-story townhouse, but he does have the option of a single or 2-story townhouse. Thirdly, there was some concerns about tree planting and asphalt driveways. And I just wanted to remind council and members of the public that part of the application process is a plan of subdivision. And when council approves a plan of subdivision, there are a list of conditions associated with it. And my expectation is that there will be conditions associated with tree planting and making sure the driveways are asphalted and so on. And regarding maintenance of the rental townhouses, as I mentioned, that is subject to site plan control. So there will be a detailed look at that particular component of the project in terms of visitor parking, snow storage. We know for sure that we do not have to have an independent garbage disposal system set off to the side, that the county has indicated they will pick up garbage. And I guess my final point is with respect to stormwater management and traffic, it's my experience to leave those details to the experts. I'm not an expert in engineering at all. I rely on the reports of others that have been submitted to the town and have been peer reviewed. So I rely on their expertise on engineering matters, and the town has a capable engineer on staff and capable engineering consultants to review that work. And again, thank you for the opportunity this evening.
Thank you, Celeste. And now I'd just like to thank everyone for their attendance and their participation. We will consider the application and the results of the public meeting at a future meeting. I will move, or I will read the motion, and then members of council will have an opportunity to make comments or ask questions of Celeste. So with that, 6th public meeting for plan of subdivision application 10 sub 2021-01 and zoning amendment file number ZA3 2021-123 Robert Street East. The recommended action of this report be received for discussion, and that staff be directed to prepare a report for a future committee of the whole meeting to address any comments received at the public meeting. And we do have there that we've received from Robert Street East public meeting presentation from Celeste Phillips, the background for the public meeting at 123 Robert Street East, the relocation map, the draft plan, the concept, the draft zoning amendment, the County of Central comments, public comments, ink petition, the virtual petition, and an email from Mick Karofsky. So with that, members of council, does any member of council have questions or remarks or concerns that they would like to address to the planner? Councillor LaRose.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one quick one. I was wondering what the setback is from the road's edge to the face of the garage.
Celeste, are you able to answer that?
Through you, Mayor LaRue, to the councillor, the minimum setback requirement is 6 meters, and that is what is being provided.
Just one quick reminder, the average pickup truck is longer than 6 meters, and that's without any snowbanks. So just so we know.
Okay. Any other further questions, remarks, concerns from members of council? Councillor Budde-Baumgarten. You're muted, Councillor Budde-Baumgarten.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, Your Worship.
Now you're good.
I thought I'd hit the right button there. So anyway, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Celeste. Good presentation. I liked the signs that were on the property. I felt that the signs were very descriptive and gave a good description for those that took the time to look at them about what the project was all about. For those that don't know, I live on Dufferin Street, a little further down near Hilltop. So I'm familiar with the intersection and whatnot. And I've lived there for a little over 25 years. So it's an intersection you get used to. I haven't found the challenges that others may have found. And I use that intersection a couple of times a day. So I'm very familiar with the parcel of land. And over the years, I've often wondered how it would be developed. It's it's been a treed lot for some time, and I believe your proposal is quite creative, and it certainly maximizes the use of the property. I do, though, have some concerns about the density of the units. And, I appreciate everything you said, and I listened very carefully to Mr. Hoonigan as well. And I did receive a couple of calls from people in the neighborhood. And I walked the area as well. I lived, as I said, just down the street and have a couple of dogs. So this was on my route. So I just looking and standing there in front of the sign and then looking across the street. And I know the houses across the street were developed many, many years ago, but they're, bungalows, story and a half on, wide lot singles. And across the street, we have a whole series of townhouses. And I just, I was just having a difficult time reconciling the difference in the density from one side of the street to the other side. And it was just, when I looked at it, it was just difficult. And it was great because the sign had a nice picture that was part of your presentation this evening. And I'm still struggling with the density. I think, as I said, it's a creative use of the parcel. And I think if the density could be reduced somewhat, that maybe to link singles instead of townhouses, that would be something I think a little bit more compatible with the types of residential which are immediately across the road, both on the Burke Street side and on the Robert Street side. The interior townhouses I really don't have an issue with. I think they seem to fit in there, and they back onto Le Caron. So that's I'm sure there's going to be a fence and whatnot, some landscaping back there. So that doesn't concern me as much. But I'm just concerned about the density and the number of units that are on Burke and on Robert Street, in the sense of the compatibility with the lots immediately across. So anyway, thank you very much for the presentation, and I'll turn it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councilor Moncur. Do any other members of council have any comments or questions in regards to the plan? Okay. Oh, Councilor Sineman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with the comments that Councillor Vadeboncler has said. Thank you very much for the presentation, Celeste, and for the comments and the presentation from Mr. Huguenin on behalf of the neighborhood. Couple of questions again about the road itself. This is more directed, it's not part of the subdivision, but if we have looked at other options for that street, so that whether it was a cul-de-sac, it might create less, create better safety for all the children and the neighbors. And also the density is, it is quite intense compared to what is in the immediate area. If there's ways that can be resolved. I don't know if you can put in a internal road I know you'd lose some lots, but whether that would be something that could work and alleviate a lot of the issues. That's something to think about. Thank you.
Okay. Other members of council, further questions or concerns? Okay, with that, there being none, Celeste, thank you again for your presentation, and Mr. Huguenin for your presentation. And with that, we thank everyone for their attendance, and we will be dealing, or staff will be dealing with this, and we're coming back to council at a further date. Now, I have already read the motion. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Levy, and all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We will now move on to 7, which is the deputations and presentations, and that is the employee recognition for years of service for 2020. And I will probably at this time pass it on to CAO Lees.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm pleased to be able to speak to this evening. As members of council and members of the community are aware, every year as an organization, we take an opportunity to recognize and celebrate our long-standing dedication and professional achievements of our staff. And before I jump too far ahead, I would just ask for members of staff that are on this evening that are being recognized with a long-standing years of service to turn on their cameras if they so desire and feel comfortable. I'm going to say a few words and then we have a short little video to show council, and I think it would be great for council and the public to see those staff. As I said, those employees, ultimately have celebrated a number of milestone years in 2020. Given the local pandemic, or the global pandemic, I should say, we've had to turn our minds to a virtual method of recognizing their leadership, mentoring, and overall success a little differently. It's hard to believe, but among 12 employees that celebrated long-standing accomplishments anywhere from 5 to 30 years in 2020, we have a combined total of 165 years of service. If that's not an accomplishment in itself, I'm not sure what is. Mr. Mayor, I believe of the 12, we have approximately half of our staff that were able to join us this evening. We may even have our longest serving employee who recently retired with us this evening, but just not without video capability. So those staff that you see with their cameras on, as well as I believe we have another our most long-standing employee with us as well without video. Without any further comments, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask our communications and IT coordinator to play a short video, and then after the video is done, I just have a couple closing remarks, and then I'll hand it back to you, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay.
Yep.
And with that, I would ask for the video to be played.
Hi, I'm Jeff Lees, Chief Administrative Officer for the Town of Penetanguishene. Today we have a group of employees that in 2020 have completed anywhere from 5 to 30 years of long-term service across a variety of different departments. Truly an exceptional milestone in their professional careers. Normally we would celebrate these accomplishments in person at our Staff Appreciation Barbecue and Christmas party. This year, in order to follow COVID-19 regulations, we've had to switch course and honor our staff members differently. Each name that appears on the screen has worked tirelessly to ensure that our community is a great place to live, work, and play. A long-serving employee is vital to our success as a municipality. These employees have motivated each other and have become lead team members with their vast knowledge and mentoring skills. This leadership has motivated others to give their best performance and proven very valuable in keeping our operations running smoothly. These employees continue to come up with new ways to tackle the challenges of the day-to-day operations, ensuring our town remains successful. You are each always ready and able to work harder and suggest things to improve your department or the municipality as a whole. To put it simply, our community would not run as efficiently without your loyalty. Their coherence of values, practices, and knowledge of their job creates a standard of service excellence and employee culture. At the end of the day, our employees are the ones who are out on the front line solving problems for residents and interacting with members of the public. They truly are the face for the community. It goes without saying that they bring their own ideas, talents, and ambitions to their job. We are blessed in the town of Penetanguishene to have so many long-serving employees. Today, let us recognize and celebrate these employees and thank them for their long-serving and outstanding service. On behalf of myself, senior leadership team, and members of council, thank you for all that you do.
Hi, this is Mayor LaRue. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, our long-time serving staff, for the dedication and hard work that you do for our community. I know that I speak on behalf of all of council when I say that we are so very fortunate to have people dedicated such as yourselves and how fortunate Penetanguishene is to have the best staff ever. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I just have a couple closing remarks and then I'll pass it back to you if that's okay.
That's okay.
As noted in the video, each of those 12 employees and quite frankly, the rest of our staff tirelessly over the last number of years have served in the face of the municipality. They've taken opportunities to enrich the lives of, as well as making service experiences top of mind day in and day out for our community, for our residents, and for our businesses as well as organizations. I would ask if there's members of council, I've asked members of staff, and I've asked and asking the members of the community that should you see any of these members of staff out in the community, be it on doing their day-to-day job or just out in the community in general, please take an opportunity to extend a heartfelt thank you and congratulate them for their years of service. It truly is exceptional, the long-standing years of service that we're recognizing this evening. The last point I'd like to make, Mr. Mayor, is that I think, I want to note that there are other members of staff that have taken time out of their evening this evening that wouldn't normally join us to join and celebrate and show support for their colleagues. So thank you to the other staff that have also taken an opportunity. And it really goes to show that, we do have a great close-knit team here. And again, thank you to and congratulations to all those 12 members of staff for their long-standing years of service with the organization. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I will hand it back to you.
Diane. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. CAO. And as I indicated before, and there are quite a number of us here on council that have been around for quite a number of years, either on council or residents of the municipality. And we know that over the years, we have been blessed and very fortunate to have the staff that stays with us for such length of time. That is a good indication of both that they are pleased and happy to be working for the town of Penetanguishene, and further, that we are happy and pleased that they do. And again, I can just say on behalf of myself and all of council, thank you so very much for all your years of service to our municipality. We couldn't do it without you. Now, there is one other thing or one other point that I would like to bring up, and that is the fact that the Ontario Municipal Administrators Association advised us that our CAO, Jeff Lees, was recognized by his peers with a Special Achievement Award for reaching the career milestone of 5 years of exceptional leadership and success as a CAO. Jeff himself will be achieving 5 years as a CAO for the town of Penetanguishene. He has shown exemplary leadership, innovation, and professionalism as our CAO, especially during these challenging times. So on behalf of myself, Jeff, and I'm sure all of council, congratulations on receiving this award. And once again, thank you one and all for being a part of our community, a big part of our community. So with that, I will move on to our agenda. Adoption of minutes not already confirmed, and minutes of the minutes of the council meetings be confirmed and adopted as circulated, council March 10th, and could I have a mover and a seconder on that? Councilor Mayat and Councilor LaRose, all in favor? Thank you, that is carried. Moving on to number 10. Actually, under 9, we do have consent agenda under 9, and that is a memo to council, revised municipal law enforcement procedure policy, and the memo to council and revised MLEO Procedure 001-2021, Policy 00121, Municipal Law Enforcement Policy, and Procedure Number TC, Policy 001-2021, Municipal Law Enforcement Policy and Procedure in TC. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Buttemacher and Councillor Mayat, all in favor. Okay, thank you. Now we move on to matters for consideration. And with that, we will have a verbal update from our Chief Administrative Office, read the COVID-19 municipal impacts. So Mr. CAO, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to provide council with a brief update as it pertains to COVID. Members of council will recall that we did get away from doing these monthly verbal updates when things seem to settle down a little bit with the pandemic. But we do think it's opportunistic to resurrect them a little bit and just provide a few brief updates for members of council. As members of council, as well as members of the community are aware, back on April the 7th, the government enacted and declared its third provincial emergency and issued a 28-day stay-at-home order. The following day, on April the 8th, our emergency management control group called a special meeting and discussed the latest stay-at-home order, and essentially made a decision to take effect on April the 9th that we would revert back to appointment only at our customer service facilities. Part of that appointment only decision included the opportunity to suspend the need to purchase dog tags and fire permits, as well as defer the penalty that would be applied to the 2021 second interim installment for property taxes only. The due date was originally the end of April, and given the adjustment in service based on provincial decisions, we felt that it would be unfair to otherwise maintain that due date. I want to touch on three main items and then close it and ask members of council if they do have any questions. The first one is with respect to the wharf that the municipality owns from our recreation and community services perspective. The harbor master that is employed with the municipality every year did start employment this week with the municipality, and next week there's a heavy focus on getting the docks put back in so that service and those folks that utilize the wharf can continue to do so. The end of next week, April 23rd, is when officially folks have been notified that they can start utilizing the parking lot, but we do recognize that there's a number of folks already utilizing the wharf, given the nice weather that we've been blessed with. The second item I want to talk a little bit about is the vaccination clinic that members of council and members of the community are aware that we are a part of with our local Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit. We are one of 13 in the region, and by all accounts, things seem to be going very well when it's operational in Penetanguishene at our arena. And the clinic did open on March 17th, and I can just say that we are all very proud of the achievement with that clinic. And I would be remiss if I did not extend a special appreciation to our Director of Fire and Emergency Services, Fire Chief Paul Ryan, as well as our Facilities Manager, Roy Patnode, and their staff, of course, that provided a host of support to those two fine gentlemen in working with public health to make that clinic what it is today. We continually receive a number of positive remarks from folks utilizing the clinic and folks coming from all over, quite frankly, to be served at that clinic. So a big thank you to those two gentlemen, as well as the control group. The last item is just with respect to the impact on local business. Our control group certainly recognizes the impact on local business, particularly small business. And we continually discuss what we as a municipality can do. We recognize that there's continued hardship faced by local businesses. Our Business Recovery and Task Force Committee meets every 3 weeks, and recently had a meeting earlier this week. And there was a bit of a brainstorming session on what can we continually do to support these businesses. And so a couple initiatives that we're going to kind of resurrect and kind of continually put a heavy focus on is a social media campaign around the Shop Local message, and bolster the activity in that regard to continually get that message out to our community and the residents within the community. There's an opportunity to host perhaps a few contests to increase community engagement around supporting our local businesses. And lastly, just overall be aligned with a number of local community organizations and community partners, similar, to the Economic Development Corporation of North Simcoe, North Simcoe Community Futures Development Corporation, our Southern Georgian Bay Chamber friends. The county has a number of things that they're doing. So there's a number of groups that are already doing a lot of great things, and we want to align ourselves with them and support what they're doing to help get the message out. So certainly, I guess my message is we certainly are continually thinking about our local businesses and continually trying to brainstorm what it is we can do as a municipality to support them and get the message out. Mr. Mayor, in closing, I would just say that our Emergency Management Control Group is continuing to monitor the situation. I think it's now more important than ever, given the rise in cases that we're seeing, as well as the extent to which the variants of concern are truly a concern. And so we are continuing to maintain our team structure and find alternative reporting locations for staff that are in larger departments, so as to mitigate risk and have them divvied up into a few groups. And I guess the last thing I would say is that we certainly want to help get the message out to the community that we appreciate their support in what they're doing. I think the community has been very appreciative, as well as very quite frankly have abided and have done a great job at keeping everyone safe, not only in the community but also our staff as well. So from a service level perspective, we are continuing to provide services electronically and virtual, as well as taking appointments at our service locations, and that will continue in an attempt to encourage the provincial message, which is to stay at home, save and except for essential reasons. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I would happily take any questions on behalf of the control group, who again has done an excellent job at stick handling and maneuvering through this pandemic.
So with that, members of council, do we have any questions through the CAO in regards to the COVID-19 impact on municipal impacts on the town? Councillor Buddimore.
Thank you, Worship. To our CAO, I didn't quite understand your comment with respect to the tax due date at the end of the month. So we have a tax due date at April 30th, and you mentioned something with respect to a deferral. I didn't quite catch that. If you could explain that again, and then, Your Worship, I have a comment. Thank you.
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Vadaboncourt, the tax due date, the second installment of the interim tax due date was scheduled for April the 30th. And so in light of reverting to appointment only and wanting to encourage and foster the message from the province, the control group had great discussion and great debate about what to do with that tax due date, given that we didn't think it would be fair to maintain that. So what the control group decided to do was look at when the stay-at-home order ends, which is on or about May 6th, which is the 28 days from April 8th, and essentially push it out an additional week. So what you're seeing is an April 13th due date for that second installment of the interim tax bill. It will only be the penalty on the 2021 portion of those taxes that essentially gets deferred, because everything else prior to that has been outstanding up until now. So sorry, I said April 13th. I meant to say May 13th. Thank you for that correction. So hopefully that provides some clarity, Councillor Vadewonker.
Okay, and Councillor Vadewonker, you say you have a comment as well?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I won't belabor what I've said in the past on this particular issue, but my point is that we're a government service. We've been identified as essential under the provincial emergency orders and the provincial restrictions. The stay-at-home order specifically exempts people that go out of their homes to access government services. So I'm a big advocate for the public being able to attend our municipal offices and conduct their business as they would with any other essential service. I appreciate the creativity of the control group, Your Worship. And I understand some of the thought process. My only request, Your Worship, is that when the control group is considering this matter going forward, and as the CAO has indicated, you're continuously reviewing this, that every consideration be given to opening the office so that the public may attend in person and conduct their business. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vadewonker. And I might point out that I'm actually part of the control group and the emergency meeting team. And in light of the fact that we not only made a decision that it would be Penetanguishene, we also take into consideration all the neighboring municipalities that we deal with. And as a matter of fact, I have a telephone conference with the 4 other local mayors every second Thursday, in which we will be having one tomorrow morning. And that will be a part of my discussion again with them. But from my understanding, that all 5 municipalities are on appointment only at this time. So anyway, we will take it into consideration and certainly discuss it further with the control group. Any further comments, questions of the CAO? Okay, there being none, thank you, Mr. CAO. Madam Clerk, did I get a mover and a seconder on that?
No, Your Worship.
Okay, so with that is the verbal update from the Chief Administrative Officer, COVID-19 municipal impacts. Recommended action that the CO's verbal report regarding COVID-19 municipal impacts be received for information. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Vadewonker and Councillor Levy. All in favor? All in favor, thank you. Then we moving on to 10B, and that is an encroachment agreement transfer for 88 Church Street, ENG 2021-06. And the recommended action is that the requested letter of consent for the transfer of the existing encroachment agreement at 88 Church Street be provided to the owner to facilitate the sale of the property, and that council directs staff to prepare a letter of consent for the transfer of the existing encroachment agreement and authorization to the new owner of the property municipally known as 88 Church Street. ENG RE encroachment agreement transfer 88 Church Street, attachment number 1, encroachment agreement for 88 Church Street. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Sanema and Councillor Mayette, all in favor? That is carried, thank you. And now we move on to C, which is 40 Thompson's Road subdivision pre-servicing agreement, ENG 2021-07. And the recommended action there is that the town of Penetanguishene enter into a pre-servicing agreement with 2704657 Ontario Inc. for the 40 Thompson's Road subdivision upon the fulfillment of the requirements outlined in section 3 of the agreement, and that La Haye Crescent be approved as the selected street name within the development, and that a bylaw be passed to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign a pre-servicing agreement for execution, ENG 2021-07, pre-servicing agreement 40 Thompsons Road, AT1 Preserve Agreement 4.12.21 updated insurance. Perhaps, well, I'll get me a mover and a seconder on this first. Councillor LaRose and Councillor Buddemacher. Okay, and then perhaps we'll just get our planner to just give us a little update as to why this, what this is and why it's required. Andrea?
Actually, Your Worship, I can speak to the item in question.
Oh, Brian, okay, thanks, Brian. Go.
Thank you, Worship. The report in front of council tonight is for the approval of a pre-servicing agreement for the 40 Thompsons Road subdivision. We do have an approved engineering design for the development. The developer has satisfied all the requirements associated with the development from an engineering perspective. They are ready to proceed with servicing of the site, and subject to the fulfillment of all of the requirements within Section 3, of which they've fulfilled the majority of them. We are recommending that council approve and enter into a pre-servicing agreement for the development so that they can begin servicing the sites in preparation for bringing forward a subdivision agreement in the future.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Members of council, are there any questions or concerns with this? Councillor Buddemacher?
Your Worship, no concerns. This is great news. This is one way the municipality can assist the developer in moving his project further. It's just great to see another parcel of land that's laid dormant for many, many years moving forward with development. So just a great news story, Your Worship. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, and so with that, we already have a mover and a seconder, so all in favor? Thank you. That's passed. And with that, we move on to 11, which is presentation and consideration of report committee of the whole. Oh, you know, something I have to get used to and do, because I've been reminded constantly by my wife to stop saying with that. So from here on in, I'm going to try and tune around without using with that. Committee of the whole report dated March 10th, 2021, that the recommendation contained within the committee of the whole report related to the recreation and community services section be approved. Mover, Councillor Cummings, seconded, Deputy Mayor Dubo. Any questions, concerns? Anybody want to pull? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. That the recommendations contained within the committee of the whole report related to the planning and development services section be approved. Councillor Levy, seconded Councillor Buddemacher. Any concerns, questions? All in favor? That is carried. That the recommendations contained within the committee of the whole related to the transportation and environmental service section be approved. Moved by Councillor Clue, seconded by Councillor LaRose. Any questions, concerns? Oh, all in favor? That is carried. That the recommendations contained within committee of the whole report related to the finance and corporate services section be approved. Mover and seconder, Councillor Sanama, and seconded Councillor Mayat. Any concerns, questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We move on to motions of which notice has been previously given. There are none. Notices of motion, there are none. And now with that, we move on to consideration of bylaws. And we have bylaw 2121 being a bylaw to authorize the entering into an agreement with Georgian Shores Boat Tours for the provision of a commercial vessel license for the tour and charter boat operations for the 2021-24 seasons. The 21-22 being a bylaw to establish a pre-servicing agreement with 2704657 Ontario Inc., 40 Thompsons Road. And that the council of the town of Penetanguishene introduced the following bylaws, and that bylaws be read a first time and deemed to be read a second and third time in carry. And I might just point out that we will be dealing a little later in our committee of the whole agenda with the Georgian Shores boat tours. So a mover and a seconder on these bylaws. Councillor LaRose and Councillor Levy, all in favor? Good, and that is carried. Question period from media and public. I don't believe we have any media. So with that, we will move on to announcements and inquiries. Does anyone have any announcements or inquiries? No. So okay, I'll read the confirmation bylaw. The confirmation bylaw 21-23 be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. Mover and the seconder. Councillor Cummings and Councillor Steinemann, all in favor. Okay, and before I move on to adjournment, I might just poll members of council if they wish to maybe have a 5 or 10 minute break between our council meeting and our next committee of the whole meeting. So if anyone wishes to have a 5-minute break, could you just lift up your yes? 4, 5. Okay, so we're going to have a 5-minute break. We'll be back in 5. And so with that, Councillor Cummings, we are adjourned.